Hey everyone, and welcome back to Crayon Farms. We are finally getting this cattle panel up to put dried beans on. So we're gonna have beans and we're gonna have watermelons in this area, and I'm also gonna show you how to plant a Three Sisters hill, and I'm actually gonna be utilizing the space where our old raised beds were because it's already kind of hilled. I have 3 of them. So come with me today, I'll show you how to get that done. While he's getting the cattle panel up, I'm gonna start on corn. And we're gonna be planting 2 types of corn. One is, we did last year and is probably one of our favorites here, is this glass gem corn. And we use this for popcorn. So you leave it on the ears so it gets hard. And then it's the popcorn we did last year.
Oh.
And you leave it on the ears so it gets really hard, and after it dries, then
and this is the corn on the top, right?
After it dries, then you can just take it off the ears, store it in like a mason jar, and you can use it as popcorn.
This is corn on the cob, right?
Yep. And then this other corn we're gonna use for corn on the cob. So it's great. This type is great for canning, cutting off the cob and freezing, and so we'll do some of that as well. We don't eat a ton of corn, but we'll just have a little bit around to use for soups and things over the winter.
Oh, yeah.
So she is starting holes for me to plant our corn in, and you're gonna plant your corn anywhere from about 6 to 12 inches apart. And corn only needs to go in the ground about 1.5 inches to get good depth, and then you'll start seeing some sprouts. It won't take long at all. So let's get this corn in the ground here. Even though the holes are a little bit close together, that's okay, because we can thin them out. So if you don't know what corn looks like, corn seeds are just like what corn looks like.
Ow.
You will pop them in the ground about 1 inch under the dirt and just tuck them in.
Hey, can
Make
I
sure
try?
you, sure you can. Make sure you water them really well.
Ow. Can I try doing one?
Yep, you want to put it in the ground a little bit further than that. So yeah, get your hole a little bit deeper there.
Okay.
All right, let's do it. Let's take your seat. All right. And tuck it in. Okay. Good job. Let's make sure we get it.
Oh, yes.
You know, if you didn't dent my shovel up, look at this.
Sorry.
How are we supposed to dig with this thing?
I wish we had a bigger shovel.
All right, I'm gonna let my little gardener just do some of the work here. So hey, wait, just get your hole a little bit deeper.
I don't know. Well, I do know how to plant. I planted flowers once.
Yeah, you do
But
a great.
they were bulbs.
They were bulbs. That's okay. All right, pop your seed in. Cover it up with, yep, tuck it in.
This is good dirt.
Yeah, it is. You know, why is this such good dirt?
Mm.
Who was out here in this area of the garden all winter?
Chicken.
Chickens. And what do chickens do that make this dirt so good?
Poop?
They sure do. They put a lot of manure here, and then it helps the soil. Good job.
Make that hole a little deeper.
I am, thank you. Then we're gonna continue around the edge here. All right, put your corn in there. Tuck it on in.
I don't know how that works, but chickens do a very nice job.
You're right. They come out here and they scratch and everything, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do a great job.
They have tiny claws.
Yeah, on their little feet. Scratch up everything. They can get the weeds. These little weeds, they'll take care of them. They won't have any weeds left when they're done, will we?
Usually, sometimes I just pull it up.
That's okay. All right, let's move on to the other side. So what we have done here is our start of the Three Sisters method of planting. Now, if you don't know what the Three Sisters is, it comes from the Native Americans, and most of the time was used by the Iroquois, and they used the 3 crops of corn, squash, and beans because they complement each other really well, and will help kind of support each other and help the other plant to thrive. So originally, the reason they used these 3 was because they looked at this as a balanced diet. Your corn being your carbohydrate, your beans were rich in protein, and then you had your squash that you use for vitamins and minerals. And these were also crops that they could easily dehydrate and keep for year-round food. So a lot of people don't do that as much today, but when you use the 3 sisters together, it's still really beneficial in your garden. So what we did was, now you can do this several ways. They used to use a field planting style, depending on the area that they were in, because you have to worry about water drainage too. But most of them used a mound style. So what we have done here is, because, let me see if you can see.
Ooh.
These were my old raised beds from last year. So this dirt is already mounded up. So this is the ground, here's the top. And so this is where on the top of the mound around the outside, yep, around the outside is where we just planted our corn. So what we will do is we will wait until the corn starts coming up. And once the corn has a little bit of height to it, it won't take it long, like 2 to 3 weeks. Then we will go and we will plant beans around the corn. Now the bean is going to serve 2 purposes. One is going to put lots of nitrogen in the soil, and corn will thrive much better with lots of nitrogen. It takes a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. So putting the beans here to plant will put a lot of lot of nitrogen back into the soil for the corn to then use. It also, the beans will use, and we're going to use pole beans for this. The beans will use the corn as a support, as a trellis to go up, and that will actually help to stabilize the corn. So you know, with like thunderstorms and things in the summer, your corn can topple over, and when that happens you can lose your corn, especially if you can't get it to stand back up, depending on what stage the corn is in. So the beans, as they wrap up, actually give more support to the corn stalks. And then after you start seeing some beans coming up, then you can wait about another week and plant your squash plants, because you don't want those big leaves to shade out your bean plants. You want your corn to be established enough to where it can handle the beans, and then you want your beans to be established enough to where the corn is not going to, the squash is not going to shade it out. So then you will use your squash plants, and your squash will actually, because the leaves get so big and it sprawls out, it will help to keep keep your soil shaded, which will retain moisture in the soil. And it's also going to help with some weed control in the area as well. So corn, some type of pole bean, and squash. So they are going to be in these 2 mounds here. We did a regular like corn, yellow corn here, and then we did our popping corn in the other hill. So now you can see that our next cattle panel and T-post are up, and this is where I'm going to be planting some Mother Goddard beans. The beans we're going to be planting on here is a type of dry beans, and these are Mother Goddard beans, and you need to soak them just in a dish of water for about 24 hours before you plant them. They are have a very hard outer shell, so by soaking them it helps to soften it up a little and will help with your germination.
Whoa.
So what we're going to do now is plant our beans.
Is awesome.
Well, thank you. What are we going to do with all this food?
Eat it.
Yeah. So then we're going to plant beans.
People know how to do that.
So then we're going to plant beans on both sides of this cattle panel, and then we're going to come back and plant some watermelon in between the beans once they start getting established and start climbing the cattle panel. So these beans will actually be here for a while, because we're using these as our dried beans. So they will actually dry in the pods on the vine, and then we will take them down and harvest them to be used and stored as dried beans for next year. So now that it's up, really all we have to do is get some beans in the ground. So let's get going. When you're planting your beans, you only want them to go, the hole to be as deep as the bean is. So when you look at this bean, it's not very big, so that's as deep as you're gonna want your hole to be. If you drop a bean down in this little bitty, in this deep hole here, it won't have enough energy to find its way through the soil. So that's why you need your hole to be shallow enough to where your bean can make its way up to the light. All right, so what I did here, we just went along the bottom and I put in my, they're a pole bean, but they will be my dry beans. So my dry bean seeds, so everything is planted here. Once my sprouts start coming up, then I will plant some watermelon under there. But just like with the squash and beans and corn, you want those other crops to get established before you start putting up a really viney crop that's gonna like run and can cover up your beans so that they won't start going up. So once they have come up and started to grow a little bit, I'll go on and plant watermelons up under there. Watermelons and beans do really well together, so they're fine for companion planting. Now, what I'm trying to look at is I have some watermelons that I started in my greenhouse, so they're ready to go in the dirt now also. I'm gonna actually make a 12-foot mound over here on this side of the greenhouse. And another reason you wanna mound them up is for drainage. Watermelons like to have a lot of water. So if you have a really juicy watermelon, it's because it got good, regular, pretty consistent watering while it was growing. So we are going to put some watermelons in over there. I am going to mulch over top of them really well with just wood chips. That way it'll help lock in the moisture into the soil so that our watermelons will be nice and juicy when it's time to harvest them. So we are planting 4 different types of watermelons. We did Orange Glow, we did Yamato Cream, both last year, and I actually saved those seeds myself and I have replanted them this year. So we will have Yamato Cream and Orange Glow again. I've also planted some Crimson Sweet, so like a smaller size watermelon, and Georgia Rattlesnake, which are the big, like old-timey watermelons that you might have seen in the grocery store. You don't see them a lot anymore, but they're like a big heirloom watermelon that will be great for our family of 6. So I'm gonna get those in the ground. I still have a ton more that we are gonna find other spots in the yard. So there might be a lot of grass here, but pretty soon there's gonna be a lot of food. One thing I want you to think about is look around your yard. Just because you have lawn there doesn't mean you can't turn it into a spot to grow food. It will benefit your family, it will save your budget, and it'll give you a little bit of food security right now while people are kind of looking at empty shelves in grocery stores and things. You will be very happy that you have planted your own, and that, you know, I even think that when you go outside and you pick something that you have grown, it tastes so much better. Especially if you are doing it organically and you're not spraying it and you're just using natural things. Your food is gonna be much healthier for you also. So this is a little trellis, wooden trellis that we used a long time ago for cucumbers, and I'm actually gonna put some honeydew melons at the bottom of it this year. So let me show you. We're just repairing it a little bit. It looks like an old porch railing, and then we added some legs to it here, and so you'll see in a minute we're going to stand it up, and I'm actually just going to put some honeydew at the bottom of that and let them climb that as their trellis. So look around your house, look around your yard. You might be surprised at things that you find that you are actually able to use for trellising. Now, one reason I love the cattle panels is because of price. Price standpoint, you are not going to find, you can buy more expensive trellising and you can build fancier trellising, but for $20, you can pick up a cattle panel. You can pick up a couple of T-posts for, like, it depends on the length that you get, but you can get them for like $5 a piece, and your cattle panels, and you have a lot of growing space. So it's a much cheaper option. It's also something that's very easy to take down and to put up, so it could be temporary. So don't feel like you're wasting, you won't be wasting a lot of money. Especially here on the homestead, we can use cattle panels all the time. Whether I need to wean the calf away from the cow, I can put them up for that. I can put them up as temporary fences to separate another animal. I can put them up to move like pasture rotation if I have to. We've done it in our yard some for the lambs when they're not down at the pasture. You can use them here like I have in this raised bed, and just kind of made like this arched trellis for beans and cucumbers and things to climb. You can make We made our chicken coop over here, or I made our chicken coop over here for our meat birds out of a cattle panel that I cut in half. So you can use cattle panels all the time on your homestead. So if you're looking for something that's an investment and you always want to kind of have around, this is a great thing to have. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these watermelons planted. Thanks so much for joining us. Don't forget to give our video a like, hit the subscribe button. You want to stay tuned. We have tons more planting videos. That's all we're doing these days. Every day, every afternoon, I feel like I'm just, hey, what are we planting today? What are we gonna be doing today? So stay tuned. I want you to be able to see all of that as we keep planting and growing and providing food for our family, one day at a time. We'll see you next time right here at Cram Farms.